What's going on, everybody? Another wonderful day here at Reptastic, and what I wanted to do today is show you the new shipment that just came in of Testudo Graeca Armeniaca, which is the Armenian Greek tortoise, or the Araxes tortoises, and they come from Armenia, obviously, and the Arax Valley. They live in semi-desert habitat and in the meadows and the hills, but we have a good group of 4.6, at least that's what they're supposed to be, and then there's also a few female, I think 4 female golden Greek tortoises. So I'm going to unbox these. I actually already started. Just got to see if there's one more clip here. There's that. I think this is a big toad. This is the biggest toad I've ever. They're just chilling in here. Look at this. Wow. So we're going to go through, we're going to look at them and try and just figure out which ones are which based on sex. There's a nice big male here. Now these tortoises are very cold tolerant, and they live in habitat or climate that pretty much mimics New Jersey. So they're going to be able to stay outside year round here in New Jersey. And they have these flat toes, which are really made for digging, as these tortoises need to be able to burrow and be able to withstand the cold temperatures. So I already have a group of these. I think I have 7.11, I think that's right. And I got them all this year, and this is another 4.6, which they are very solid and big tortoises. This one here, I'm sure that was probably something earlier on in its life. There's some damage there on this female. This female's nice and large. We have, let's see, this looks like another male. We have a male there, another male, that's 3. That's another male, that's 4. So I'm guessing these ones are going to be the females. We have, yes, another female here. That's 1, 2, 3. Obviously this is a female, it's monstrous. 4, 5, and this is going to be 6. All right, cool. So there's 4.6. And then we have some big, massive Lebanese golden Greek tortoises, which these shells are obviously a little dirty, need to be cleaned off a little bit. But you can see how beautiful these tortoises are and how they get their name, the golden Greek tortoise, which is another tortoise I can keep outside year-round in New Jersey. And I have various pens set up with different groups from different locales. And this guy, what I'm going to do is before I put them out, I'm going to soak them and make sure they get some good eating in. Try and do some Missouri, some greens. But every time you get tortoises, that obviously these are imports, and I think they haven't really come into the United States before this year. So we're all kind of new in the United States to breeding these and keeping these. So we'll kind of see what happens, but we do have a lot of information available to us from other keepers around the world. And I think that these are one of my new favorite tortoises because they're large and they can stay outside year round. I love tortoises. I love turtles and tortoises, any kind of reptile in general that can stay outside year round here because it's less work for me, and I can put them in a habitat that mimics what they have in the wild and see if it reduces the stress, because obviously, I thought I saw wheels on this. There is wheels. There's wheels over there. So I'm gonna wheel this over. Except for the golden Greeks, I was gonna actually, you know what I'm gonna do is I'm going to leave them in this enclosure for right now. Except for the golden Greeks, I'm gonna put them in another bin, another tub where I can feed them separately, give them a little bit more room. But I'm gonna get them a little bit warmer here, make sure they soak, make sure they bulk up a little bit. Let me just grab this bin. This bin here. See if we can get these guys a good warm soak. They look a little dehydrated from the journey. All right, but straw at the bottom is a good base for good substrate for their greenhouse, because straw doesn't really mold as much in comparison to hay. I do use hay in the spring, summer, and even early fall, just because they eat the Timothy hay. Straw, I kind of try and use that more into the winter months, because when they're in there and they're in the greenhouse, there's a little bit of moisture, a little bit of humidity. We want to try and make sure that there's not mold growing all in the substrate, which is going to be covering them as they burrow into the dirt. But you got to have a large enough greenhouse to give them a little bit of space. You got to loosen up the soil at the bottom of the greenhouse to give them the ability to dig. If it's really hard as a rock and makes it hard, I mean, obviously their toes, their flat nails are made for digging, but you know, you never know. So we're going to take precaution. Some of these Armenians are pretty solid, but I do want to give them a soak anyway, just in case. I want to take you over and show you some of the ones that I already have. And I'm going to show you the ones where these guys are going exactly as I just built a new pen for this group specifically, just because it's a separate shipment and I want to kind of keep them separate. Plus, you can only put so many tortoises in one enclosure, and you want to space them out. When you have these set up in small groups, you tend to get more eggs, and you reduce the stress on them. But here's a new pen that I just made for this group specifically, and I have 2 greenhouses which are stuffed right now. Still got hay in there, but it's going to end up going to straw in the next month. Obviously, some of the plants here are dying back as we're approaching the cooler months. So we got some Rose of Sharon, we got some hardy hibiscus, we got some lavender, and few different grasses, a zebra grass there. And these are edible. They can eat them if they wanted to, wouldn't harm them in any way. And that's one of the things you also want to make sure you do, is you can look it up online, types of plants that are good for tortoise enclosures, which are on the safer side, because there are poisonous types of plants that you want to stay away from. So as you can see right here, this is a double door that I taped just to prevent water from going through, but this is where these guys are going to be in the winter. And I think I'm going to probably block them in just so they don't come out on a warmer day. I've had that happen before. In January and February, we get temperatures that are, you know, randomly at 60, 65 degrees. It gets warmer up there. They come to the top, next thing you know, they're sitting out. And I'm like, what's going on? Because that night, it's going to drop right back down again. So we got to make sure we take precaution. If it does get really warm in the winter, we get, believe me, we've had days in February that were like 80 degrees. And then it drops right back down to 40. So if you ever get that, I will come out here and I will crack these so a little bit of air can get out and it doesn't get too hot, to wake them up and have them come to the top, even though they might move around a little. Okay, so over here, I'm going to take you to the other ones, which I may or may not have. I'm pretty sure I've shown you some of them in previous videos. But the group that's in this enclosure right here, this is a different type of greenhouse. I wish I could get more of them. They're all just chilling in here. And it's nice and warm. There was some Missouri in there, but they're sitting at the top because the temperatures are still nice. And again, these animals are cold tolerant. But this is about as many as you can have in a greenhouse like this for brumation in the winter time. Otherwise, it'll get too crowded. And we want to avoid overcrowding, because then you have stress. You have stress on these animals, and that is no good. But these ones I've had for, I'm going to say 4 or 5 months now, at least. And they're very well established. They're very strong, very healthy. They ram each other a little bit. You can see there's some markings there from ramming each other. Males will ram males and they'll ram females. I've even seen females ram other females. So it's quite interesting. Some of them, I guess, just get aggravated with one another. But this is a nice, healthy, fat male. And I think this is going to be my biggest female. Actually, no, the biggest female is over here. I'm going to use something like that to barricade them in. This is, I think, the biggest female I have. So this tortoise is about 8 to 9 inches. Haven't measured it. But again, nice and fat and healthy. And I hope that next spring we get some eggs, maybe in the mid-May, early May. We'll see what happens. I always tend to have the tortoises lay before the turtles here, which is, I think, strange to me. I don't know if it's because they're in the greenhouses. The Hermans, the Dalmatian Herman seems to lay early May, mid-May, and go all the way through middle end of June, whereas a lot of the turtles don't really get going until after Memorial Day, towards the end of May and early June. So, but yeah, this is a very cool species. So hopefully we can get a good group of these established here and get a lot of babies, and then they can circulate and we can have a lot of keepers across the country obtain some of them from some of us that have got these in from recent shipments in this year. But hope you guys liked the video. If you can, like, subscribe, and any comments, feel free to leave them and I will get to them as soon as I can. I hope everybody is doing well, and I will see you in the next video.